Hey Guy, an expedition that cost lives to discover America, specifically the famous voyage of Cristoforo Colombo. So what would it be like if you accompanied him on this challenging journey? The towering waves, the hidden cliffs, the dense jungles, the secret traps. So before you get comfortable, or take a moment to like the video and subscribe, only if you truly enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. It'll be fascinating to see people joining us from all over the world. Now, dim the lights, enjoy the quiet atmosphere. Listen to the story, along with the gentle crackle of firewood. Let's step into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes into a veil of mist. It's still dark. The waves lap against the hull in a steady rhythm, like the whisper of an unvanished dream. But what makes your heart pound isn't the seasickness. It's that faint sound, a small cry echoing up from the lower deck, as if someone is trying to warn you. You sit bolt upright, your hand brushing the cold rail, and suddenly realise you are not a lone passenger. You are Cristoforo Colombo's companion, the very person who will set foot first on the shores of the New World. You are not whom he expected. Columbus had promised Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand that he would bring back treasures of gold and silver, and that the new lands would fall under Spain's dominion. They wanted a gallant, battle-hardened captain. Gleaming armour, a formal felt hat, and a sharp, curved sword. But you, a nameless stranger who appeared out of nowhere at that secret meeting in the Madrigal Palace, are the one he has trusted to board the Santa Maria. The moment when you saw the red-sealed envelope bearing the royal insignia placed in your hand, you did not understand why. The secret covenant between Hartai and the royal houses stipulated that only those of high rank could join this fateful voyage. You were nothing more than a gatekeeper, once entrusted with carrying the court's letters from Seville to Cordoba. So why did he choose you? After all, you only know how to splice rope and read a compass. But when the sun began to rise and the wooden rudder thumped beneath the hull, you realised Columbus needed something else. He needed a witness to tell the truth, someone who bore no glory except eyes turned toward the open sea. As the ship left the port of Palos de la Frontera, lanterns scattered their light in streaks through the cabin windows. You quietly climbed onto the deck, smelling the briny sea mingled with linseed oil and waxed planks. Captain Columbus stood there, tall and lean, his eyes glittering with the thirst for discovery. He turned his gaze toward the western horizon, the place they believed would bring them to islands not yet named on any map. "Look upon the night sea, and you'll find it calmer than any silk cloth," he whispered, his voice smooth with a hint of antiquity. "But don't let the tranquility deceive you. The sea always harbours uncertainty." You see his hands tremble as he grips the helm, precisely as the greatest turning point of his life is about to unfold, one that will decide the fate of an entire continent. In the darkness, you suddenly hear a shout. "Bow!" A young sailor rushes up, pointing ahead. You shuffle to the railing, your heart pounding as if about to leap from your chest. The bow of the Santa Maria is cutting through a thin, wet mist. But before you lies not the endless ocean, but the strange outline of a white shore, glowing like a full moon. At that moment, Columbus turns, his eyes blazing like a torch in the night, and smiles with mysterious certainty. "We have arrived." But you know this is not new land, not the sun-drenched Bahama Islands as the maps record. You feel a numbness as you realise. The sand beneath your feet is damp and colder than any shore you've ever touched. A strange scent drifts by, a blend of decaying moss and wildflowers so unfamiliar it resembles nothing on the old earth. "Here is not the New World," you whisper, your voice catching. "Here is somewhere else." Columbus narrows his eyes at you, his lips parting as if weighing his words. "Exactly," he breathes. "We have just touched the boundary between fact and legend. This is a land I have not yet drawn on any map." You stand silent, sensing each gentle wave lapping the shore like the heartbeat of some colossal being hidden beneath the depths. In that moment, between the silver moonlight and the eerie cold sand, You realise this voyage is more than an adventure. It is an expedition into a place no human has ever set foot on, nor even dared to imagine. You turn back to look at Columbus. His eyes are alight with excitement, yet shadowed by unspoken anxiety. All the charts, compasses, and the grand presentations in the royal court taught him how to reach the New World by straight lines and precise angles. But now he is witnessing something beyond any calculation, a place where the sea and the ocean's soul converge. "We will go further in," he intones, his footsteps slow on the night-cold sand. You follow behind, your heart pounding without pause. With each step you sink deeper into the mystery. The scent of moss seems to seep into your lungs, sharpening your awareness of every breath, every pulse of the sea's rhythm. You feel as though you have become an inseparable part of the ocean itself, a link in this fateful voyage. Under the cloak of night, only the whispering waves remain, and the silhouettes of two figures standing before an invisible enigma. They, Columbus and you, will press onward together, exploring the land where all true journeys of history begin. And from here your story, his story, and the story of the islands not yet drawn on any map will be written. Sunrise was not boisterous. The first light drew back the veil of mist like a thin silk, gently falling onto the sea. You woke as the early rays peeked through the leaves on the deck of the Santa Maria. As the light spread across the deck, you noticed each dewdrop sparkling on the rigging like morning pearls. The distant cry of seabirds drifted up, awakening your still drowsy senses. You stepped out onto the ship's side, your gaze tracing the shoreline where yesterday you and Columbus had stood. The sand remained white, but now it was warming under the morning sun. The crew had made preliminary preparations. The sails were tightened again, a small sailboat was lowered to explore the bay's depths, while another team readied a smaller launch to row to shore. Columbus stood beside you, a towel wrapped around his sweating hand. He looked down at the boat bobbing on the gentle waves. "We cannot let this be merely a stroll," he said. "Every pebble, every root, can tell us the story of this land." You nodded, a mix of excitement and anxiety rising in your chest. Everyone awaited treasure, gold and silver, silks, but you understood more than anyone. This land held mysteries far beyond any material longing. You and Columbus, along with 5 sailors, stepped into the small boat and rowed towards shore. Sand clung to your feet, soft yet irritating, like layers of oil paint on your hands. When you placed your first foot on solid ground, it felt as though you were being drawn back from a dream. The scent of the ancient forest mingled with the salty ocean breeze, a strange perfume, both seductive and spine-tingling. After walking about 2 miles in the direction of the strange carvings, the group came upon a small swamp, its surface as smooth as glass. Sailor Maurizio scooped a handful of the dark water and eyed it in surprise. "This isn't seawater, nor ordinary fresh water," he exclaimed. "It's thick with a faintly acrid smell." Columbus studied the stagnant pool, his eyebrows rising. "This forest soil has held the breath of thousands of years," he said. "We must proceed with caution." You bent down, snapped off a small twig, and brought a drop of the water to your tongue. A fleeting bitterness gave way to a cool, tingling aftertaste. You couldn't help shivering, acutely aware of every cell in your body waking to this uncanny place. The forest opens before you, ancient trunks reaching skyward, their leaves thick like an umbrella canopy, blocking out the light. The calls of wild beasts echo around you, sometimes like the distant howls of gibbons, sometimes like the soft hiss of serpentine reptiles. Underfoot, the dry leaves rustle with each step, composing a strange symphony of sound. Columbus stops, raises a finger to signal everyone into silence. He listens for a moment, then says suddenly, "The voice of the wind. It is whispering to us." You feel as though the forest's breath is weaving around your ears, whispering in the language of leaves, of bark, of damp earth. Each inhale of yours merges with the living rhythm of the forest. Ancient footprints. After more than an hour of hacking through the forest, the group reached a clearing where large inverted boulders formed a camel's hump. On the rock's surface, the characters you and Columbus had faintly seen traced in the ash yesterday, were now clearer than ever under the sunlight. Deep undulating grooves like the shapes of waves. Columbus placed his hand on the rock face, gently tracing the characters with his fingertips, quietly murmuring each stroke. "Some kind of writing," he whispered. You looked around and spotted footprints pressed into the damp earth near the boulder. They were larger than anyone's in the crew. You knelt down and used your dagger to scrape a sample of the hardened soil. On a nearby tree root, small shell fragments clung like fossilized minerals. Everything evoked prehistoric times, yet was too alive. Mauricio pulled out his small notebook, sketched the traces and calculated. Footprints about 35 centimeters long. Probably not from any ordinary forest creature. You showed Columbus, and he glanced over before suddenly flushing. "We're tracking a strange creature. Or the remnants of an unknown civilization." The entire group fell silent. Your heart thundered in your chest. A chaotic blend of exhilaration and dread. The ancient echo night fell, and the group made camp beside the massive boulder. The campfire crackled, its dancing flames playing across the rock face, reenacting the characters you had just discovered. Columbus motioned for you to sit close to him. He held a small oil lamp up to the stone and said, "You hear that?" You tilted your head. At first it was only the chirping of insects. But as the fire died down, you clearly heard a resonance like a whispering voice. X-A-Y. Then silence. The young sailor Elena shivered. "There's something wrong here." Columbus laid a comforting hand on her shoulder, then looked you squarely in the eye. "You are the only one who can record all of this. When we return to Spain, only your report will make the king understand what we have seen." You felt the pressure rise. This was not merely a personal mission, but a responsibility to all of humanity. The long night rolled on, with the winds howl through the leaves, at times like mournful crying, at times like the distant beat of war drums from another realm. You tossed and turned, and every time you drifted off, you jolted awake. You thought you saw the silhouette of a shadowy creature slip across the firelight, its eyes flashing a piercing blue. Mysterious morning glow. When the early mist descended, the space between the tree trunks suddenly filled with tiny, sparkling rays of light, as if thousands of dewdrops were glowing. Columbus roused everyone awake. He pointed up to the sky. Forest stars. You watched intently. In the dim light, it seemed as though tiny flowers were opening and then closing. You realised it wasn't ordinary dew, but a species of self-luminous crystal mentioned in the indigenous legends Columbus had heard on that island. Columbus pulled out his small journal and scribbled eagerly, "If we bring these flowers home, their power will astonish Europe." But you looked around, seeing the fragile ecological tapestry. Every organism here, from the trees to the insects, was intricately linked. Harvesting the bioluminescent crystals without understanding their true nature would cause harm. You hesitated, then looked up at Columbus. "Sir, if we take them all, might we destroy the entire ecosystem?" His gaze grew contemplative. After a moment he set down his pen. "We are the guides to treasure, but the greatest treasure may not be gold or silver. Let us be cautious." The second dawn had barely broken over the sea before the Santa Maria was anchored about 100 metres from shore. You woke before most of the crew and stepped onto the deck while the morning mist still clung to the rigging. A gentle breeze carried the mingled scents of forest and sea, bringing back memories of last night. The glowing crystals, the giant footprints, the primeval whispers. Columbus had gathered the group at the bow, studying the hastily drawn sketch map. On the chart, he marked two key areas: the rock bearing the carved characters and a freshwater stream flowing from the forest to the sea, about 2 miles to the south. He looked at you, his eyes shining. "Today we follow this stream. If the inscription on the rock is a guide, then the waterway may lead us to the island's heart." You nodded, your heart racing with excitement. A freshwater course is the lifeblood of all creatures. If any trace of civilization or remarkable beings exists, they will surely gather along its banks, exploring the southern shore. While two sailors rowed the small boat to shore with supplies and equipment, you, Columbus, and three others, Maurizio, Elena, and Marcos, crossed the wet stretch of sand. Underfoot, the sand was interspersed with tiny broken shell fragments hidden beneath the ebbing tide. You bent down and picked up a hexagonal shell shard, its surface gleaming like fractured crystal. "Limestone," Elena said, eyes fixed on it. "Like on many Caribbean islands, but this shard is thicker than usual." Columbus gave a slight smile. "Every smallest detail matters. Notice even those things that seem meaningless." You pressed on until the sandy beach ended and mushy mud appeared. There the waves had carved small water channels, each swirling like the imprint of a giant hand. You suddenly heard a crackling sound, turned and saw Mauricio picking up a pebble with unusually twisted striations. "Like twisted wood grain," he exclaimed. "It could be the fossilized shell of some creature." You grabbed the pebble and held it up to the sunlight. The spiraling striations resembled a grand nautilus, evoking feelings both majestic and uncanny. You slipped the pebble into your pocket and continued upstream, encountering the eyes in the forest. The shoreline woods were not as deep as the forest from before, but the trees grew densely, their canopies thick. The sound of trickling water guided you, but the deeper you ventured, the louder the ancient forest became. The calls of hidden birds, the rustling under dry leaves like the steps of unknown creatures. Mauricio suddenly froze, whispering, "Do you see that?" You followed his gaze. Through a narrow shaft of light between two trunks, there were glimmering round dots like animal eyes reflecting back. Eleanor pulled her hood over her head and kept her distance. Columbus leaned forward and murmured, "Not one pair of eyes." But dozens, perhaps hundreds. Unbidden, you felt a shiver, as if surrounded by beings that could see into your soul. But as you stepped closer, the glowing dots all winked out at once, vanishing into the undergrowth. You bit your lip, reminding yourself not to let fear take hold. We are intruding on the territory of unknown creatures, you thought, finding the mysterious waterfall. The roar of cascading water grew ever louder. When you broke through the final tree canopy, the group gasped at a waterfall nearly 10 meters high, winding down a moss-covered cliff. At its base, a crystal-clear pool reflected the sky and the foliage overhead, creating a scene both majestic and serene. Columbus stepped to the water's edge and looked up at the falls. "Where does this water come from?" he asked. "Its source runs longer than any stream I've ever found." You hopped down onto a small rocky ledge, scooped up some water, and took a sip. It was icy cold, without a hint of bitterness, as clear as crystal. You passed the water skin to Elena and Maurizio, and both nodded in approval. You glanced at the rock walls on either side. The waterfall's path had polished the stone smooth, and emerald moss clothed the surfaces. Above, a dark fissure led up to the summit. You imagined a hidden cavern above the falls. If this stream flowed through it, that cave might hold the traces of those ancient creatures, or the primeval inscriptions. Columbus turned to you. "You go first," he said. "Signal if there's any danger." You nodded and began to climb the wet stone steps with care. When your foot touched the cave's entrance, you shivered. The air inside was colder than any forest night. The sound of water crashing from above echoed like distant drums, each reverberation thrilling and chilling you at once. Unusual light in the cave's depths. You stow your oil lamp in your pack, then unwrap a piece of cloth around a small candle, ignite it, and place it against the rock wall. The flickering light reveals the cave's surface. Here, cloaked in moss, they're etched with fine lines like the face of a mythic deity. But what astonishes you most are the inverted stalactites hanging from the ceiling, sparkling like thousands of tiny crystals. You touch one of the small stalactites with your fingertip. The freezing cold spreads through your skin, and a faint purple glow emanates from within the crystal. You jerk your hand back, heart pounding. These formations possess an intrinsic luminescence, entirely unlike the crystals on the sandy shore or in the forest. You sit in a daze, jotting every detail into your notebook: their shape, size, the angle of the light. Then you light a second oil lamp and cast its beam deeper into the cave. The glow broadens, revealing an engraved line running along the ceiling, undulating like waves of stone. "A second writing," you whisper. Squinting, you read the characters, soft, flowing forms that resemble consecutive moving waves. This inscription seems longer than the one on the boulder outside, like a more complete message. When the words echoed, you took the small striker made of cardboard and tapped lightly against the cave wall, producing eerie, resonant tones. The sound travelled to the opposite wall and returned as an echo, like a whispered message. "I come from the deep sea." You startle. The echo is not merely sound, but seems to carry meaning. You quickly jot the brief utterance into your notebook, trying to sketch its acoustic imprint. As you turn back, you see Elena's eyes shining brightly. "We are communicating, even across the void." Columbus rushes into the cave, presses his hand on the wall, and draws a new character. "That is a greeting, or a warning," he says. "We are guiding the island to tell its story." You feel a shiver, both fearful and exhilarated. Will your mission of recording be enough to preserve this story for posterity? You hurry back onto the deck to find the crew hastily furling the mizzen sail and tightening the rigging. Columbus appears at the helm, his silvered hair whipping in the rising storm. He points toward the horizon, his eyes anxious yet resolute. "We must hold westward for as long as we can. Praise be that the open sea stretches before us. But this storm could erase all traces if we fail to react in time." In that moment, your chest tightens. You remember the brilliant sunlight, the forest birdsong, and the bioluminescent glow in the cave. But now it's a battle against the elements. The waves quickly tower overhead, chasing the hull as if intent on swallowing every life aboard. The rigging creaks and groans, the ship pitches violently, and you, with trembling hands, tie off one line while clutching the compass in the other, fighting to keep its needle from spinning. The wind rises roaring, spray driving rain into your face, forcing you to squint. Every time the ship tilts, it feels as though you'll be flung overboard. There are moments when you wonder whether you will ever return to that mysterious shore where so many wonders lie hidden. But you hear Columbus's voice ring out, "Hold fast, steady the helm." His words inject courage into you, reminding you that your mission is not only to observe, but to survive, and tell this tale to those who follow. The storm rages all day. When the dusk, if it can be called dusk, glows red through the sheets of wind and rain, the exhausted sailors collapse against the rail. You wipe your eyes, sweat and rain mingling, then turn to Columbus. "Do you think we have the strength to continue?" He regards you, his tired smile still burning with passion. "Every trial is a test of fate. Show that we will not give up." After the gale, when the sun re-emerges, the Santa Maria has drifted tens of nautical miles from its former position. You and the crew spend hours inspecting the damage. A torn sail, a cracked section of deck, and provisions soaked through. Fresh water remains, but each precious drop is guarded. You witness a sailor collapse from thirst, hunger, and exhaustion after the night's struggle. You spoon water into his mouth, vowing to preserve your strength until you reach safe shore. The next day, the sea is calm, but a new crisis arises. The sailors begin to fall ill, some with headaches and vomiting, their skin sallow. Scurvy, the dread disease of long voyages, hovers in your thoughts. You recall Columbus's account of the Tristan's crew years before. They died like flies, with no time for funerals. Now you wonder what you will do if someone cannot endure. You find Columbus sketching a map of a new land on damp canvas. He nods when he sees you. "We must find green vegetables or local fruit to ward off the sickness. Otherwise, this voyage will be our grave." The two of you exchange a determined glance amid the hundreds of hopeful lines scrawled on the chart. You grasp his hand. We will prevail. At midday, when the ship anchors at a small islet, you and two sailors are sent ashore to forage for medicinal plants. The mud is thick and squelchy. Mosquitoes swarm, forcing you to crouch low, eyes scanning for edible foliage. The chorus of birds and insects leads you to a large clump of ferns with lush green fronds. You pluck several leaves, chop them finely, and return to the boat. Columbus brews them in water with honey and distributes the tonic among the crew, and miraculously, the sickness begins to abate. You breathe a sigh of relief, but also understand how fragile life can be. Not long after, yet another challenge emerges. The chief mate openly disagrees with Columbus's chosen course. He argues that they should return to the Caribbean to resupply before venturing farther west. A fierce debate erupts on the deck. You stand to one side, witnessing tense voices and fiery glares. Columbus calmly refutes him, defending his vision of discovery and explaining that delay will cost them the favourable winds. Ultimately, the decision rests with him, and when the mate reluctantly orders the course unchanged, you see how much trust and responsibility rest on Columbus's shoulders. Once the conflict has subsided and the storm within the crew has calmed, you sit beside him. The space between you reflects every effort and sacrifice made. You whisper, "I am ready to go on." He nods and regards you fondly. "We are writing history, but first we must survive to tell it." You startle at a hoarse call from below decks. "Sir, another storm is forming on the horizon." Columbus appears beside you instantly, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. He grips your shoulder. "We must face another tempest. Come with me up to the deck quickly." As you both dash up the companionway, the crew is already furling the foresail. The wind is twisting and whipping sea spray into your faces. You shout into Columbus's ear, "Can we take shelter by that small island ahead?" He shakes his head, wind rattling his words. "No time. Keep the ship pointed west as planned. If we change course now, we'll lose the wind's favour." You hold the helm with Columbus, waves roaring on both sides of the hull. Suddenly, the first mate calls back, "Captain, the mainsail is torn. I need someone to mend it." You and Columbus spin around to see Mauricio holding up a ragged piece of canvas. Columbus signals you, "Help him pull the loose fabric down quickly." You rush over, and together with Mauricio, lash a temporary patch onto the sail. A sudden wave crashes against the ship, nearly knocking you off balance. You brace yourself on the deck, muttering, "I never imagined the sea would teach me so many lessons." At the storm's height, Elena's voice rings out across the deck. "We're running low on fresh water, sir." You sprint to the hold and peer inside. The barrels of water are half empty. You scoop up the last water skin a sailor has filtered and clutch it to your chest. Over the gale you shout, "We need to find another water source." Columbus nods, his gaze steeled. "When the storm breaks, we'll head into the southern bay to check that freshwater spring. For now, hold the helm steady." After hours battling the gale, the dim light of evening, if it can be called evening, filters through the now calmer sea. The Santa Maria drifts toward a stretch of golden sand lapped by gentle waves. You and Columbus, with a small boat crew, row ashore to find water. On the beach, sand mixed with shell fragments crunches underfoot, the air still carrying a briny tang. Elena kneels by a shallow pool and scoops water. "This looks safe." You fill another water skin and look up at Columbus. "Shall I give this to the crew to drink, sir?" He nods. "Yes, we can't carry all our water from the ship. Have the sailors set up barrels overnight. There will be light rain, we can collect that too." You turn to Marcos and quietly instruct, "Marcos, prepare a basin to catch rainwater. Eleanor and I will venture deeper into the forest to scout." Moving into the wood, sunlight streams through the canopy in mottled patterns on the ground. You pause, listening to the rustle around you. "Elena, do you hear anything besides birds?" She shakes her head but keeps her eyes wide. "Yes, like someone walking softly, but it's not us." You shiver and pull her behind an ancient tree. From the shadowed undergrowth, you both see flickering figures, like local indigenous scouts watching from a distance. One holds up a branch, marking a direction. You whisper, "Are they showing us the way to water, or leading us into a trap?" Elena looks worried. "If they are hostile, we're at a disadvantage. But if they're friendly..." You cup your ear, trying to pass the faint calls, more like the wind than speech. You give her a determined look. "We must risk it. Their goodwill could save our lives." At the forest's edge, the leader steps forward and raises his hand in greeting. He is tall, bright-eyed, and carries a bundle of medicinal plants. He speaks in an unfamiliar tongue, but through gestures you understand him to ask, "What do you need?" You place a fern frond in his palm, then point to your throat and to the wet food stores in your pack. "Scurvy, no greens." He nods, smiles, and leads you both deeper into the forest. Across a stream, he shows you edible herbs growing at the base of a large tree. You and Elena feed him a bit of your dry rations in thanks. He smiles, lowers his head, and disappears into the thicket, leaving you and Elena standing in a pool of gentle sunlight. Back on the beach, you find Columbus conferring with the first mate. When he sees you returning, he waves, "We have enough greens to make broth. Thank you for your effort." You set the basket down and smile at him. "We owe them our thanks." Columbus nods, thoughtful. "Record the name of this tribe. When we return, we will accurately describe their medicinal customs. It is invaluable knowledge." You take out your ink and begin to write as Elena prepares to boil water. A sea breeze softly brushes away your fatigue. You realise that every obstacle, storms, sickness, internal strife, has forced you and Columbus to connect with the land, its people, and the true history of the New World. In that moment, you understand. You are not merely a companion. You are the bridge between two worlds, the storyteller for those who have never heard the Atlantic's fury, never known the kindness of the indigenous, and have yet to grasp the significance of a single fragile fern leaf. When the sun had just risen, you, Columbus, and the small boat crew returned to the dinghy to continue across the bay. The air was crystal clear, broken only by the soft tinkling of wind chimes brushing the boat's side. You sat at the prow, compass in hand, listening to the gentle lap of the waves. Columbus sat behind you, the first mate rowing steadily. "Yesterday the storm, today a calm breeze. Everything must wait on the weather," he murmured. You nodded, though your heart still fluttered. "Sir, according to your rough map, are we still far from the main shore?" you asked. "About 50 kilometres more, if the wind holds. Then we'll face the reef where the sea can swallow a ship whole," Columbus replied, eyes fixed on the horizon. As the boat approached shallows, you heard the hull scrape over hidden rocks. Columbus shouted, "Oars, pull the boat in." You and the others quickly stowed the oars and steered into a narrow channel. Waves broke white along the sides. Mauricio trembled. "If we're not careful, we'll be trapped on the reef." You pressed a finger to your compass, memorizing your position. "Captain Columbus, I'll watch the bottom and guide the crew," you offered. "Good," he said, his enthusiasm renewed. You leaned over the gunwale and peered into the clear water. Boulders large and small, draped in moss and dead coral, lay below. You pointed, "A bit to starboard, avoid that upside-down bowl-shaped rock." The crew followed your direction, and the boat slid forward more smoothly. You exhaled in relief. Once clear of the reef, everyone breathed easier. Columbus patted your shoulder. "Quick thinking." You smiled, but before you could reply, Mauricio cried out, "Look!" Ahead lay a small cove, waters emerald green, its shoreline cloaked in deep jungle. In the centre rose a sandbar dotted with crude leaf-thatched huts from which wisps of cooking smoke curled. You and Elena exchanged glances. This must be a local settlement. Columbus shaded his eyes to observe. "That may be their village. We'll row to shore, but discreetly. If they welcome us, we'll invite them aboard to discuss supplies and medicines," you said. And if they are not friendly? He asked. You answered solemnly, our only bridge is goodwill. The dinghy touched sand. You stepped out, toes sinking into warm grains. From the huts, figures stooped to watch. A tall, dark-skinned man emerged and raised his hand in greeting. Hua ani? He asked, surprise in his smile. Eleanor held up the medicinal leaves and nodded. His smile grew broader as he motioned you to follow him into the low forest. You asked, what is your name? He placed a hand on his chest by way of reply. Miki. Miki led you and Eleanor along a narrow stone path to a lush garden of strange fruit. Yellow, egg-shaped, its rind rough. An elderly woman smiled kindly. Try one, she said, pointing to a fruit. You bit into it, a clean sweetness, a faint honey and chestnut aroma. Delightful, you praised. She nodded and guided you to sit on a flat rock, offering a cup of herbal infusion. You gave some to Columbus. He closed his eyes in pleasure and nodded. We have found a fruit that will prevent scurvy. Then the beat of a drum rang out, calling everyone together. Miki helped you stand and led you to the village's central clearing. A young man struck a mortar-like instrument in rhythm. Dozens of villagers gathered, eyes curious on Columbus, and then on you. You stepped forward and bowed. My name is your name, companion to Cristoforo Columbus. We come in peace. Columbus followed with a nod. Spain and your island will be friends. A brief silence. Then applause and song broke out. You smiled, knowing you had witnessed history. Two cultures meeting for the first time, exchanging knowledge and trust. As the sun dipped westward, Columbus pulled you toward the shore. They will help us find our way to the larger island to the west. Tomorrow, we sail on. You placed a hand over your heart. I am ready. In the twilight, your two shadows stretched long across the golden sand. The waves whispered a promise of the journey ahead, not only to discover America, but to carry home a story of human kindness and the bonds connecting souls. When the first dawn of the new land broke, you awoke to damp air and the sweet scent of forest blooms. On the beach, the Santa Maria rode steady, her sails slack in the gentle breeze. Columbus stood beside the ship's rail, hand on his chin as he gazed at the horizon. You stepped forward, bare feet touching the cool sand. Today we venture deeper inland, he said, his voice both eager and calm. According to the natives' map, to the south there is a great river they call Aqua Grande. That waterway leads to fertile lands rich in gold and silver. You listened, excitement mingling with apprehension. Every expedition was an encounter with the unknown. You reached for the weathered compass tube Columbus had given you before you left shore. Keep the compass pointing southwest, he instructed. Don't let the forest's maze lead us astray. You nodded, fully aware of your duty, to mark every footstep, to record every river, every tribe, every European longing played out here. Everyone boarded the small boat, gliding across clear water before stepping onto a muddy bank choked with vines. You slogged through the mud, dagger in hand, eyes fixed on the forked path ahead. Columbus and the first mate, Marcos, hauled the chest of tools, while Elena and Maurizio bundled the dry rations. This path leads into the giant bamboo forest, Elena said, pointing to the leaf-strewn trail. We must watch for snares and pit traps. You shrugged and replied, Let me go first, I'll mark our way with a red paint blip. Clutching the small paint can, you pressed on and sprayed a mark at every turn, the scent of paint mixed with musty moss, heightening the sense of mystery. Last night's rain had left black puddles that mirrored the morning sun like little pools of glass. Suddenly, a soft moan came from the right. You stopped and raised a finger to signal silence. The groan carried a forlorn melody, like a plea for help. Columbus approached. Someone is in pain, he said. We must find them. You followed the sound through thick foliage and found a native man collapsed by a great tree, clutching his leg, wounded by a thorn. He looked up, eyes glistening with fear. No, no, he stammered, voice barely whole. Elena knelt beside him, patted his shoulder, and retrieved her herbal pouch, medicines gathered days before. She pulled a tribulus leaf, crushed it into a poultice, cleansed the wound with stream water, and bandaged it. Meanwhile, you and Columbus communicated by gesture. We should invite him to the ship for care, you suggested. Agreed, he nodded. He knows the trail and the water sources. When the man felt stronger, he led the group back to the forked trail, then pointed at a nearby spring. Its water was clear, revealing a bed of stalactite-like rock. He pointed southwest and said urgently, Aqua Grande. You hastily noted in your journal, Aqua Grande, main watercourse leading to the continental interior. Columbus beamed and clasped the native's hand. Thank you, friend. What is your name? Tiwa, he replied, voice warm and deep. The party pressed on through the forest. The sun climbed high, temperatures rose, and leeches and mosquitoes swarmed your shoulders. You brushed at your sleeves but stayed alert to the strange flora. Thick yam vines coiling around trunk-sized limbs, bright red blossoms exuding a heady scent. Mauricio picked a purple fruit, sliced it open to reveal white flesh and a faintly tart juice. Shall we try it? He asked. Go ahead, but assume it may be poisonous, Columbus cautioned. You sampled a bite, sour and a little sharp, but with no ill effect. You nodded and made a note. At midday, the group paused beside the vast river. Sunlight danced on its surface, ripples like silk. The Aqua Grande rushed swiftly, its banks lined with reeds and lotus. Columbus turned to you. We must cross to the other side. I'll test its depth, you said, retrieving a long pole to gauge it visually. Be careful, he warned. You waded in, sinking into knee-deep mud, then scooped water into a wooden gourd to confirm. The depth measured about 1.5 metres. You signalled back. Safe to ford, but watch for submerged rocks. Marcos slung a rope over your shoulder and secured a plank as a makeshift float. The first mate in Tewa braced behind you to pull. As you crossed midstream, you heard water slapping against the plank and felt both thrill and trepidation. A sudden rain from the forest splashed the surface, drenching everyone. Reaching the opposite bank, you emerged onto a drier clearing, carpeted with green grass. In the distance rose a low shrub-covered hill. Columbus leaned forward. We will climb that knoll. To scout the surroundings, you understood. You and Elena supported a sailor who had slipped on the slick bank. Tewa guided you to a flat rock, and the three of you climbed atop, breathless. From the hill's summit, the view opened wide. To the west, a vast valley of endless forest. Across the river lay Tewa's village, smoke curling skyward. Columbus drew you close. This is only the beginning, he said softly. This land is larger than any map can show. Your eyes swept the panorama, heart racing. A true America spread before you, uncharted, undreamed of. You turned to him. Where to next, sir? Observe the valley, Columbus replied. If there is another river landing, we will approach it. If not, we return to Aqua Grande and follow southwest. Watch your footing on the slippery rock, Columbus called, his voice anxious. He pointed to a green, moss-slick ledge, beyond which yawned a sheer drop. You bent slightly and placed a hand on the stone's edge to steady yourself. Sorry, sir, my step is a bit heavy, you whispered, inching sideways to solid ground. Columbus smiled and patted your shoulder. Every step, every challenge, is written into history's ledger. Don't hurry, let your breath guide you. You relaxed, drew a deep breath, and moved forward. Beyond the ledge, the trail opened onto a vast valley. Swaying reeds, columns of pale blue smoke rising from native kilns, and in the distance the Aqua Grande glinting like a ribbon of silver. We have arrived, you exclaimed. Columbus raised his spyglass to his eye and peered through a gap in the foliage. Across the river, I see the ruins of stonework. Let's cross and investigate. You steered the small boat and paddled gently across the current. Rounding a bend, you froze at the sight of stone steps carved into the earth, perhaps the entrance to an ancient cavern. "Columbus, look!" you shouted. He hurried over, eyes alight. Yes, this must be the work of human hands. Milo, the first mate who had sailed with Columbus from the beginning, exhaled with relief. At last, evidence of indigenous architecture on a grand scale. "We must explore inside," you replied. "They may have left records or artifacts." When the group set foot on the steps, the cave air was cool, damp, clinging to your brow. Your oil lamp flickered, illuminating faint carvings in the rock, figures of people, animals, and spiral motifs. "Sir, can you read this inscription, Columbus?" you asked softly. He frowned, leaning close to the wall. "I recognize only a few symbols, like a sun motif and flowing water. It suggests they worshipped nature." A sailor sighed, startled. "Do you think we should touch anything, or leave it undisturbed?" You looked around, sensing the sacred atmosphere. "We are strangers here. We must honor their work, record it, but do not remove it." Columbus nodded in agreement. He sketched hastily on parchment, noting every detail. You refilled the lampwick, keeping the flame steady. As the oil flickered, Columbus whispered, "If we document fully, we will understand their worldview." Emerging from the cave, the group paused on the riverbank. You removed your hat and let your hair fall over your shoulders, feeling the warm flush of your body meet the cool air. "Another long day," you sighed. "Are you all well?" Milo wiped his brow and smiled. "Moments of discovery like this make every hardship worthwhile." You turned to Columbus and whispered, "Thank you for letting me share this experience." He placed a hand on your shoulder, eyes warm. "No companion is more important. Thank you for crafting this story with your heart." You wiped the sweat from your brow, eyes straining to follow the mottled light through the leaves. Columbus signals for the group to halt, his voice a whisper. "Do you hear that? That sound?" You listen. Beneath the hum of cicadas, there's something else, a rustling of leaves, then a soft whisper close by. You lean toward Eleanor and murmur, "Perhaps someone is watching us." Suddenly a shout rings out from across the riverbank. "Alto! Stop!" You and Columbus turn toward the sound to see several natives standing on the muddy shore, long bamboo spears in hand. Miki steps forward into the current, raising both hands. "Stop! They are guarding this sacred water." Columbus pulls you back and speaks quietly. "Do not act hastily. Let me speak." He walks forward slowly, lowering a fist to chest level. "We come with goodwill. We only wish to drink water and continue our journey." The leader, stern-eyed, replies in their unknown tongue. Miki interprets. "They say the upstream spring is sacred. If we take water or defile it, they will be angered." You turn slightly to Columbus. "Shall we ask permission for a small amount in exchange for a Spanish gift?" Columbus nods and steps forward, producing an ivory comb from his pouch and placing it in the leader's hand. "This is a token of our gratitude for your hospitality. May we please take some water for our voyage?" The native examines the comb and finally nods gently. He gestures with his spear, and the others step aside to reveal a small bubbling spring. You and Elena kneel and quickly fill your wooden water gourds, bowing your heads as you scoop. "Thank you." When your gourds are full, Columbus makes a polite farewell gesture. The native smiles faintly, nods and then points back upriver, indicating you should proceed. You exhale with relief and hand the water to Columbus. He dries the sweat on your forehead. "With each encounter we learn to respect them. That is the key to every meeting." You smile and nod, pride shining in your eyes. Leaving the shore, the group rows downstream into a larger valley. On either bank rise low, shrub-covered hills marking the boundary between two primeval forests. You close your eyes for a moment, inhaling the forest air, heavy with wildflower scent. When you open them, Columbus is listening to the water rushing over a shoal. This spot could serve as a resupply station if we need to repair the dinghy. You gather carpentry tools and resin to patch the boat's hull. Elena checks the compass. Southwest remains on course. You nod and suggest, "We should stop here and rest." After a simple meal, damp bread and a fern soup, you and Columbus push through the reeds to a large tree, leaning back against its trunk. In the quiet moment you ask, "Sir, do you think last night's storm and that encounter were some kind of sign?" Columbus smiles, softly. Every trial reminds us of human limits, of the fragility of will, and the importance of empathy. You reflect on the hardships so far, storms, illness, discord, and feel fortunate to stand here as witness to history. You say softly, "I think I have learned more than all the books in the royal court." He regards you fondly. "And I have learned from you patience and respect." In the afternoon, as the sun slants low, the group moves on. The current quickens, and sheer moss-clad cliffs rise on both sides. You wonder if this is the stretch of river that some earlier European expedition called the Singing Cliffs, where wind and waves collide to create drum-like echoes. When the boat enters a narrow gorge, you tap the dagger lightly against the rock face. Boom! The echo rings clearly, lingering. Columbus exclaims, "Exactly! This is the Singing Cliffs." You and he stand on either side of the boat with the natives, listening to the natural music of the ancient valley. A sacred feeling washes over you. You realise this journey is not only about discovering America, but about hearing the Earth's own voice. You turn to Columbus, seeing wonder in his eyes. "We must record this echo in our journal, so future generations can hear it." He nods and instructs the sailors to note the spot on the map. You feel your heart swell, harmonising with the cliff's echo and the rhythms of ocean and river alike. You stand at the rail of the Santa Maria, eyes fixed on the western shore, unfolding like a rolling curve in the morning mist. Weak sunlight filters through thin clouds, bathing the island before you in a brilliant jade green. Columbus appears beside you, brushing sweat from his brow. "That is the western coast," he says softly, excitement and calm mingling in his tone. "The biological signature here is entirely different from the east. We must prepare for new challenges." You lean back against the rail, tasting the briny dampness of the sea air. "Sir, where shall we make landfall?" you ask. He points toward the bow. "Not far from here. I spotted a narrow beach wedged between two cliffs. It's sheltered from the waves and should let us land safely." Columbus turns to first mate Marcos. "Set a course for that spot. Watch the wind and the undercurrents." Marcos nods and readies the launch. You, Eleanor, and 3 sailors load dry rations and barrels of fresh water into the small boat. Everyone is silent, hearts pounding. As the oars slip through the glassy water, you feel an undercurrent beneath the hull, the ocean's great breath. When the boat touches the sand, you step onto the damp shore, the mix of grains and shell fragments whispering underfoot. Before you lies a narrow strait, flanked by sheer cliffs that block your view. The scent of damp stone clings faintly of seaweed and algae. You draw a deep breath, then turn to Columbus. "This landing is more secluded than I expected," you murmur. He nods, eyes scanning the cliff face. "We must climb up to survey. Where are the climbing tools?" Elena hands you a long rope. "Here, we'll fashion a ladder with rope and hook it into the rock crevices." You and Mauricio tie iron hooks to the rope and fling them up the cliff. When the hooks catch solid rock, you double-check them and begin your ascent, sweat sliding down your forehead. Elena braces the rope below, steadying you every time your foot slips. The cliff rises nearly 10 meters. Your legs burn. Halfway up, you grasp a tendril of climbing vine to steady yourself. "Are you sure?" Elena calls from below. You take heart and nod. "All good, keep going." At last your foot finds the flat ledge. You exhale, wipe your brow and haul Elena and Mauricio up after you. Once the group stands safely above, an extraordinary panorama unfolds. Unbroken primary forest, a verdant valley, and in the far distance the reed and thatch roofs of another village. Columbus smiles. You've witnessed the first vista of the West Coast. Study it carefully. Find us a path down. You pull out your journal and sketch the view. There, you say, marking a narrow slope descending into the woods. We'll follow that. Descending, the soft earth threatens to give way. You lead the way, carving small notches into tree roots with your small knife to form steps. Reeds brush across your shoulders, and you spot brilliantly purple flowers you've never seen. You pick a few and breathe in their faint brown sugar aroma. These could make a refreshing tea, Elena whispers. We should gather them. You nod and fill your cloth sack. Beneath your feet, a clear stream babbles over shining stones. You taste the water, slightly sweet with a hint of bitterness. This water is excellent, you report. Columbus smiles and lays a hand on your shoulder. As expected, the West Coast holds not only resources but surprising abundance. Just as you prepare to paddle upstream into the forest, the sound of hoofbeats comes from behind. You turn to see a group of white men, light armour and fluttering Spanish flags approaching. The first mate calls out, "Reinforcements from Hispaniola." You panic. What are they doing here? Columbus holds up a hand to calm you. Stay calm. We were warned reinforcements would follow, but if they arrive first, our plans could be overturned. The commander of the mounted detachment rides forward and addresses Columbus solemnly. Admiral Columbus, we are ordered to pursue westward and ensure every royal vessel stays in proper formation. Columbus narrows his eyes and replies deliberately. I understand, but we charted this region first and we press inland to find the main route. The commander glances at Columbus and then at you. And this man? You step forward and bow. I am the chronicler, companion to Columbus. My duty is to record every discovery faithfully. The commander nods, skepticism in his gaze. Maintain distance and await orders. All future decisions rest with the Royal Navigation Council. A weight settles on your chest. Will your mission be stifled? Will your journal ever capture the full story? Columbus places a reassuring hand on your shoulder. Do not fear. We can continue our deeper explorations, and when opportunity arises, we will persuade them. Now, lead the reinforcements into the forest. We stay together. You nod and fall in line. The picture of the West Coast includes its lush beauty, but also power struggles and tests of resolve. You follow Columbus, ready to record every challenge, every determination, for you understand that the story of America is not just geography, but a tale of clashing wills, cunning tactics, and above all, the human heart. You and the royal reinforcements push deeper into the forest, each step heavy on the rotting leaves and tangled roots. Everyone grips their spears at the ready, eyes sweeping the dim undergrowth, with only slivers of sunlight breaking through the canopy. Suddenly, a thunderous sound echoes from ahead. Boom, boom. You freeze. The noise isn't animal. It's like war drums reverberating from the earth itself. The group listens intently, and Columbus turns to First Mate Marcos. What is that sound? Could it be a hostile tribe signal? Marcos frowns, his voice trembling. No, not ordinary drums. It sounds like a colossal echo, coming from a cavern across the hill. Your heart races. Elena's eyes are filled with worry. Should we turn back? Before you can answer, the ground trembles briefly, and a long fissure splits open right at your feet, jagged and black like a small volcanic vent. Sand and leaves fall into the chasm as a blast of frigid air rushes up. Run, run, you shout, grabbing Elena's hand and pulling her away. In panic, everyone scrambles back. Spears snag on vines, daggers clatter out of their sheaths. You glance at the rupture. Earth continues to widen the crack, revealing gleaming, fossilised coral rock. A surge of hot, sulphur-scented air hisses upward, nearly smothering you. By God, an earthquake! The first mate cries, hurriedly pulling Columbus to safety. But before you can fully understand, a low, mournful growl rumbles from the depths of the chasm, like a sea monster's cry from the ocean floor. You feel chilled to the bone as you realise the sound isn't mythical. It's the roar of a giant creature, either in pain or warning. Eleanor grips your arm, voice barely a whisper. We shouldn't stay here. You nod and rub your eyes to clear your dizziness. Columbus lays a steadying hand on your shoulder, his face grave. Head northeast, away from that fissure. Watch every step. You lead the way, veering into a dense thicket. Thorny leaves scratch your arms, but it's better than lingering at the edge of that abyss. Behind you, the ground still shudders, and the chasm's roar reverberates in your ears. Suddenly, a small collapse to your left. A rock tumbles with a screech, nearly striking Mauricio's foot. He yelps and jumps back, pulling you along. Hailstones or a cave collapse? He asks anxiously. Columbus shouts, Not hailstones, keep moving, do not look back. You inhale deeply, eyes scanning for those rare beams of sunlight, searching for a safe route out of danger. The reinforcements follow close behind, breathing hard, but maintaining formation. Finally, the group reaches a flat, open area. You turn to look back at the fissure. The split in the earth has widened to nearly 2 meters, exhaling cold air and dust. You wonder, is this the entrance to an underground network of caverns beneath the fate? Primeval forest? Have you just crossed the boundary between the human world and an ancient realm of stone? Columbus steps beside you, holding up his weathered parchment map. We can't record anything down there. We lack the knowledge to understand it. We press on exploring the west coast, but remember this place. It is one we will return to. You nod, voice still a bit shaky. I will remember, and I will describe it accurately so future generations can study it. You and Columbus lead the royal reinforcements cautiously across the flat clearing. The entire forest falls eerily silent. First mate Marcos spins around, scanning the stillness. I don't hear birds or insects, he whispers. It's as if the whole forest is holding its breath. Elena grips your hand, her voice barely above a whisper. It feels like we're being watched. Before she finishes, a pair of eyes glints from the undergrowth ahead, in a shaft of pale light. You freeze. Columbus leans in and murmurs, Raise open hands, this could be an ally, or an enemy. A native steps forward, slowly lowering his spear to the ground. He is tall, sun-bronzed, his eyes haunted as if he has witnessed the impossible. You raise your hand in greeting, guessing aloud. They've come. Perhaps another tribe? The man says nothing, only beckons your party to follow him. Columbus leans close and warns, Proceed, but stay alert. Every step could be a trap. You lead the way across the carpet of dry leaves, feeling each twig crunch beneath your boots. Suddenly the guide stops before a massive, hollowed tree trunk. Carved into its bark is the image of a strange bird with outstretched wings. He points and whispers, A warning. This ground is sacred. You realise the carving marks a forbidden holy site. You turn to Columbus. We've entered a special territory. He nods and studies the symbol closely. Hold up, let me record this. As Columbus carefully sketches the emblem into his leather notebook, the earth trembles softly. Small birds roosting above flutter down, leaves tinkling like a response to some unseen signal. Your heart pounds. It's not just a marker, but a warning that nature itself stands guard here. Suddenly a voice echoes through the distant trees. Someone is here. They've broken the ritual. From the forest edge, armoured Spanish cavalry rush toward your group. Columbus's sailors draw their swords. The native guide freezes, then falls to his knees before you in supplication, and darts back into the woods. Columbus roars, Hold your ground, do not attack unless attacked. The cavalry commander gallops forward and shouts, Stand down! This is forbidden ground. Admiral Columbus, you must produce your permit. You step between the parties, holding aloft your crumpled royal decree. The Spanish admiral's expedition is sanctioned by Her Majesty. We have the right to pass, but we respect this sacred land. Please do not disturb it. The commander frowns, then his gaze lands on the bird carving on the tree. His expression shifts as he realises its significance. If this is a holy emblem, we must perform the ritual before proceeding. Admiral Columbus, please stay and observe. Columbus inclines his head solemnly. You exhale in relief. In a small circle cleared with bamboo staves, the commander and several native warriors begin to chant, sprinkling sacred spring water upon the earth. Their ancient melody reverberates under the canopy, and you shiver as you sense the 1,000-year-old bond between the people, the forest, and their ancestral spirits. When the ceremony concludes, the commander offers a guarded smile. Admiral Columbus, you may pass, but keep this place clean and do not disturb any more sacred signs. You bow in thanks, and with Columbus lead the expedition deeper into the forest. Sweat and lingering incense smoke hang in the dawn air. You catch Columbus's eye and see they're not just determination to explore, but deep respect for the mysteries of this hidden land. You taste the salt of the sea, mingled with the forest's dampness, as the Santa Maria's oars push through the narrow strait for the last time. Gentle waves lap against the hull like a whispered welcome to explorers. Columbus stands at the rail, eyes fixed on a lonely stretch of jagged black rock beyond, backed by thick jungle. That is what the natives call the gloomwood, he says softly, a hint of reverie in his voice. They believe its spirits guard the treasure of their ancestors. A chill breeze makes you shiver. Gloomwood. Does no one dare set foot there? You ask. Columbus nods, gaze distant. Only those permitted may pass, but we must try. It's the most direct path to the highlands. When the boat grounds, you step onto the slippery, moss-covered rock, crouching to keep your balance. Elena and Mauricio follow closely, while first mate Marcos plants his spear into the wind. Every move carefully, you whisper to Elena, then turn to Columbus. Should we follow the cliff trail or cut straight through the forest? He withdraws his compass and watches the south needle swing. The cliff trail is safer, but longer. The forest route is faster, but full of traps. You inhale and decide. We will hug the cliff, then descend into the valley from above. Columbus smiles. A wise choice. Let us proceed. You edge along the cliff, each step measured above the yawning chasm below. The tang of seaweed and misty ocean spray alternates with the earthy scent of moss, awakening all your senses. On high, you glimpse a few thatched huts built into the trees, but no sign of inhabitants. It seems they have withdrawn, you say, scanning the rocky shore. Only traces remain. Columbus nods and points to a narrow crevice. There, old charcoal and bleached bones, like an old ceremonial site. You step into the fissure and discover a faded animal hide carved with a spiral symbol. Mauricio pries it free. They performed offerings or rituals here. Elena picks up a length of braided vine. This can be our makeshift map cord. You nod, removing Columbus's leather map and carefully unwinding the vine to protect it, while your eyes never leave the dark forest beyond. You sense something watching. Suddenly, a soft laugh drifts behind you. You whirl around to see Tewa emerging from the foliage, holding a bundle of strange flowers. His eyes kind. I knew you would need a blessing, he says shyly, offering the bouquet. Place it at the cavern's mouth for safety. Stunned, you accept the flowers and bow your thanks. Columbus approaches, sets his compass on a rock, and lays the bouquet beside it in a quiet ritual. You feel a warm reassurance amidst the cool, shadowed air. Thank you, Tewa, Columbus says. Your blessing is our greatest safeguard. Tewa smiles and steps back into the trees. You look at the flowers, then turn to Columbus. With the natives' aid and their ceremony, we can proceed confidently. He nods and takes your hand. I will never forget this moment. It is proof of cooperation between our two cultures. You smile, heart racing. Together you step through the crevice and continue along the cliff to the trail's end. At the highest promontory, you behold your first view of a vast valley framed by two dark ridges, mist swirling and morning light slanting in. Here it is, you whisper, the heart of the gloomwood. Columbus turns to you, eyes shining. Beyond lies the American highlands, waiting for us. You smell the brine of the sea mingled with the forest's moisture as the Santa Maria's oars drive you through the final narrow channel. Gentle waves lap against the hull like a whispered welcome to explorers. Columbus stands at the rail, eyes fixed on a lonely stretch of jagged black rock backed by dense jungle. "That is what the natives call the Gloomwood," he says in a low, wistful tone. "They believe its spirits guard the treasure of their ancestors." A chill breeze makes you shiver. "Gloomwood? Does no one dare set foot there?" you ask. Columbus nods, his gaze distant. "Only those granted permission may pass. But we must try. It's the most direct route to the highlands." When the boat grounds, you step onto the slick, moss-covered stones, crouching to maintain your balance. Elena and Maurizio follow closely, while first mate Marcos plants his spear into the shifting wind. "Every step carefully," you whisper to Elena, then turn to Columbus. "Do we follow the cliff trail, or cut straight through the forest?" He pulls forth his compass and watches the south needle swing. The cliff path is safer, but longer. The forest route is quicker but rife with traps. You inhale and decide, we'll hug the cliff, then descend into the valley from above. Columbus smiles. "A wise choice. Let us move on." You edge along the cliff, each step measured above the yawning chasm below. The tang of seaweed and misty ocean spray alternates with the earthy scent of moss, awakening all your senses. Above you spot thatched huts built into the trees, yet no sign of their inhabitants. "It seems they have withdrawn," you say, scanning the rocky shoreline. "Only traces remain." Columbus nods and points to a narrow crevice in the cliff face. "There, old charcoal and bleached bones. It looks like a ritual site." You step into the fissure and discover a faded animal hide, carved with a spiral motif. Maurizio carefully pries it from the rock. "They once offered sacrifices here." Elena finds a length of braided vine on a branch. "This can serve as our makeshift map cord." You nod, unwinding the vine carefully around Columbus's leather map to protect it. Your eyes never leaving the forest's edge. You sense something watching you. Suddenly a soft chuckle drifts from the trees. You spin and see Tewa emerging from the undergrowth, holding a bundle of unfamiliar flowers, his expression gentle. "I knew you would need a blessing," he says shyly, offering the bouquet. "Place it at the cave's entrance for your safety." Astonished, you accept the flowers and bow in thanks. Columbus sets his compass on a rock, then lays the bouquet beside it in quiet ceremony. You feel a warmth spread through the cool, shadowed air. "Thank you, Tewa," Columbus says. "Your blessing is our greatest safeguard." Tewa smiles and steps back into the foliage. You look at the flowers, then turn to Columbus. "With the natives' aid and their ritual, we can proceed with confidence." He nods and takes your hand. "I will never forget this moment. It is proof of cooperation between our two cultures." You smile, your heart racing. Together you step through the crevice and continue along the cliff to the trail's end. At the highest promontory, you behold a vast valley framed by two dark ridges, mist swirling and slanted morning light. "There it is," you whisper, "the heart of the Gloomwood." Columbus turns to you, eyes shining. Beyond lies the American highlands, waiting for us. The last of the wind died away, and the plateau sky returned to a pale blue, like a gentle drape after the storm's curtain. You and Columbus, with the crew, retraced the trail. The air still clung with damp earth and the acrid tang of scorched resin. On the ground, the imprint of the giant boulder remained, and crushed tufts of reed grass testified to the danger you'd just escaped. You drew a deep breath to steady your pulse, then looked to Columbus. "How far to our destination, sir?" He squinted at the worn leather map. "About a half-hour's walk across this valley, then follow the small riverbank. We will come to a flat, sandy stretch. That is where the land's final secret lies." You nodded, closed your journal, and tucked it into your belt. Fatigue pressed at you, but your determination burned bright. The party set off again, treading across the golden grass, occasionally following the faint markers you'd left before the storm. Suddenly, you heard an unusual babble ahead, a sound of water flowing over the stone, grand and resonant. You turned to Elena with questioning eyes. "Do you hear that?" She nodded, her tongue dry and trembling with thirst, then whispered, "That must be the last river." As you reached the water's edge, you gasped. The brook rushed through a series of rock ledges, white spray dancing like silk in the sun. On the far bank, you spotted small footprints pressed into the wet sand. Not the sailors' heavy prints, but delicate, broad-toed marks, as if left by native children. Columbus crouched under a tree, smiling. "They've left this trail as an invitation. We are in the right place." Without hesitation, you removed your shoes, lifted a wooden water gourd, and dipped it for the first mate to taste. He drank deeply, eyes lighting up. Pure and cool as a mountain spring. Yet as he turned back, his expression froze. On the far side of the rapids, among outcropping rocks like gnarled hands, stood a stone door sealed tight and mottled with green moss. Above its lintel was a large spiral symbol, painted in faded red, the same spiral you'd seen in the first cavern. You stood speechless. "This is the final rock chamber." Columbus said nothing but stepped slowly toward the door. Every footfall echoed against the rushing water like a drumbeat of destiny. When he rested his hand on the stone, a shiver ran through you. The surface was icy, its veins curling like the carvings of time itself. He carefully wiped his hand on his cloth, then drew a small circle beneath the spiral. "This ancient carving, it must mark a lost civilization," he murmured. "If we can open it, we may find a treasury of knowledge, or precious resources." You stammered, "Is there a way to open it?" Columbus closed his eyes, recalling the cliffside ritual. "We need a sacred offering, the flowers Tewa brought, and the holy spring water used in the ceremony." He nodded to himself. "Place the flowers on the spiral and pour the sacred water. If all is correct, the door will yield." With trembling fingers, you withdrew the bouquet from your pouch and laid it between the two stone spirals. Eleanor poured water from the gourd over the petals. As the final drop slipped down, the rock quivered softly, and a crack formed along the carved spiral. A rush of cool air exhaled from within, redolent of fresh moss and damp ancient earth. "It's opening!" you cried, eyes shining. Columbus offered a rare smile. "Step through, but do so slowly. Even the slightest noise could bring the chamber down." You handed the oil lamp to Elena and drew your compass, then together with Columbus stepped across the threshold. Inside, the space was far grander than you'd imagined, a smooth vaulted cavern glittering with stalactites. At its centre stood stone monoliths carved with spiral reliefs, mysterious in purpose, yet charged with enigma. You walked forward, head tilted back to admire the ceiling. Drips of stalactite hung like strands of a goddess's hair, each lamp flicker, setting 1,000 crystal points alight. Beneath your feet, a soft susurrus suggested underground streams flowing in secret. Each echo was a whisper from time itself. Columbus leaned close and whispered in your ear. "We have uncovered one of the greatest relics of the Americas. The greatest treasure here is not gold or silver, but the memory and culture it preserves." You suddenly notice your breathing slow and deepen as you step out of the cavern's exit. Morning light filters through a crack in the rock outside, illuminating the rippling stream at your feet. Torn between two worlds, on one side the ancient mystery of the cave, on the other the boundless freedom of the open sky, you pause for a moment, but Columbus stands there, raising his lamp with a gentle smile. "We have crossed the final threshold. From here, nature's corridor leads up onto the plateau." You nod, brush sweat from your tunic, and follow Columbus down the rocky slope. All is silent except for the murmur of the stream and the crunch of boots on stone. The space slowly opens up, The trees thin out, giving way to low vegetation, silvery reed grass and tiny white flowers blooming in the dawn mist. Columbus stops, placing a hand on a resin-slick sapling. He whispers as if speaking to the land itself. This place was once the gateway between two worlds, the old world and the new. Many early explorers perished here for failing to honour the spirit of the earth. You bow your head in reverence, then look to him and ask, "Which direction should we take to return to the ship safely, sir?" He unrolls the leather map one final time. His finger glides over the Gloomwood harbour mark you made, then points toward a silvery ribbon of water visible through the reed fields. Follow this channel and you will come to a broad pool. That was the old expedition's camp, now home only to an abandoned skiff. From there we can signal the Santa Maria. You inhale sharply, excitement coursing through you. Before you depart, the first mate signals a halt. He pulls from his pouch a handful of small talismans woven from grass, offerings brought by Tewa and his people. "Take these," he says, "for good fortune, and in remembrance of those who aided us." You accept one, sliding it onto your rope-worn cord, feeling a warm reassurance spread through you. Elena and Maurizio nod and fasten their talismans to their gear as well. The group follows the stream's course, sunlight slanting through each reed stem to dance across the water's surface. Birds suddenly burst into cheerful song, a striking contrast to the stillness inside the cave. Their melody seems a welcome greeting. I have become the storyteller, you think to yourself. Every path, every creature here has listened, and now we carry their story home. Unexpectedly, Columbus clasps your shoulder, his voice warm and earnest. The next pages of our journey are not just the way home, but the final trials. Prepare your spirit. You look into his eyes and see both faith and the apprehension of the unknown. Yet you know you are ready. The cave's gate has closed behind you, and before you lies the open plain, holding everything you and Columbus will bring back. Not just gold, not just maps, but the story of the human heart. Between ocean and jungle, between ambition and reality, the channel guides you and the party around silent bends, barely wide enough for a small boat to slip through. The water lies glassy, mirroring the drooping canopy like swaths of green silk. You lightly touch the surface, feeling the cool rush tempered by the midday sun's warmth. Columbus sits beside you, eyes alit with excitement. This is the emblematic wetland of the central New World. Many believe these waters heal wounds and banish fatigue. You taste a sip, subtle floral notes, a gentle sweetness like honey steeped with herbs. Elena smiles softly. I never expected the legendary sacred spring to lie in such a pristine wilderness. As the boat turns into a wider pool, you spot the rotting hull of an old wooden skiff, its frame entangled in flooded tree roots. That relic seems to echo your own journey, from the vast ocean to the shadowed forest, from the cavern's drumbeat to the spring's song. Maurizio peers intently. The previous expedition must have used this boat to return but lost its stern in flooding. You nod, leap onto the old hull, brush aside floating algae, and find a sturdy yoke. Bending down, you lift it and carry it back to the launch, handing it to Columbus. This will be our final craft to the secret harbour. He beams with satisfaction and stows the yoke in the skiff. In that moment, the lapping water seems to slow, as if pulsing with the land's heartbeat. You lean toward Eleanor and whisper, "Every river, every vessel, however worn, bears the imprint of a life." Elena smiles and scoops away the algae on the boat's floor. "We will cherish this heritage and bring it home." Columbus taps his 10 fingers on the rail, counting out the departure's rhythm. Prepare yourselves. The journey home will be rugged, but these waters have witnessed the imprint of our footsteps on the Americas. You lift your gaze to the high canopy, where the last rays of sunlight filter down. A warmth stirs in your heart, for you realise this expedition was never about maps alone, but about the human tapestry of belief and fear, hope and trial, respect and discovery. As the boat glides through the thin mist, you whisper to yourself, "The final page of the story remains open until we reach shore," and the delicate sunset above seems to nod in agreement, promising tomorrow's dawn of a new era, where two worlds meet, and the human heart finds a common home between ocean and forest. As darkness gently fell over the plateau, you and Columbus guided the little boat through the final pool. The sunset stained the river crimson, mountains casting long shadows on the water. The oars dipped in unison like a farewell song, each splash echoing a promise of return to the sea. "Look ahead," Columbus whispered. There, flickering lights on the Santa Maria's deck. You lifted your gaze. Through the twilight mist, the mothership emerged like a beacon of destiny. Sailors stood on the rail, waving, torchlight dancing as they cheered your arrival. In that moment, you felt the entire voyage converge. Every storm, every bead of sweat, each sacred spring drop, the cavern rituals, the native markings, all culminating in this triumphant shout. Stepping onto the deck, you turned to Columbus hesitantly. "We did it." He smiled, squeezing your shoulder. "Not yet. Tomorrow's dawn brings our next mission, to tell this story to Europe." The first mate approached and handed you a fresh leather journal. "Write the final lines. Our story must resound." You opened the blank page. The pen's nib held the sea's moisture as you wrote softly. "Today, October 12th, 1492, we return from the island whose sands the sunset set ablaze. What we have witnessed is not just new land, but the soul of a civilization hitherto unknown. I, companion to Columbus, record here every heartbeat of the Atlantic and the jungles of the New World." A trumpet sounded, summoning the crew to formation. Columbus strode to the rail and raised his hand in salute. "Fellow companions, loyal sailors, Europe will hear this song, the song of hope and respect, of discovery and sharing." As the trumpet's clarion echoed across the night sea, you looked up at the star-strewn sky and knew, our story, our voyage, will never fade. It will live on in humanity's memory. The Santa Maria filled her sails and surged westward, leaving white-capped waves in her wake. You stood quietly, clutching your warm journal, gazing at a faint lighthouse on the horizon. In that final moment of the expedition, you understood that the destination was not merely a new shore, but the place where the human heart finds hope to sail on, ever exploring, ever connecting. The Santa Maria sailed into the harbour at Palos de la Frontera as the sun crested the horizon, bathing the port in a blaze of golden light. Hundreds of locals lined the quay, cheering and waving handkerchiefs, as if greeting heroes returning from mortal combat. Church bells rang out. Other ships hoisted their sails to welcome the fleet, Spanish flags fluttering in the sea breeze. Columbus stood at the bow, tall and lean, his bearing resolute. As the Santa Maria eased in, he turned and met your gaze. You, who had followed him through storms, jungles, and mysterious caverns. He smiled, his voice ringing out. "My companion, this is the moment of the century. We have carried news of the New World into the annals of human history." You nodded, your heart drumming with triumph. Every step on the deck felt sacred, each footprint a testament to your and Columbus's labours. When the ship reached the pier, the port commander hurried forward for a formal reception. Guards presented arms, martial music swelled with drums and trumpets, and a procession marched from the quay into the town. The crowd cheered. Women strummed lutes and sang welcome songs. Children danced alongside the cavalry. You disembarked, moved as Columbus placed a hand on your shoulder and whispered, "There is no one else beside me in this hour of glory." The procession passed through the Grand Plaza, where King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella awaited. As the flagship approached, the nobles knelt in deep homage. The monarchs prepared to bestow an honorary crown upon Columbus, but he rose instantly and extended his hand to pull you to your feet. "Stand with me, you who endured every hardship by my side." The crowd erupted in applause, drums booming and the national anthem soaring. The Queen smiled warmly and presented Columbus with the leather journal you had kept so meticulously, along with the map of the newly charted lands. She turned to you, eyes glowing with gratitude. "Thank you, our storyteller. Because of you, this tale will endure." You bowed, your chest swelling with pride. In that moment you understood. This voyage was more than a sea crossing. It was a brilliant milestone in human history, when two hemispheres and two civilizations connected across the ocean, ushering in the first era of globalization. From that day on, your name and Columbus's were etched into the history books as the pioneers who guided Europe to the New World. The impact of your journey spread across continents, sparking cultural exchanges, commerce, and sometimes conflict, but above all, a passionate quest for knowledge and discovery.